We dropped at 0417 when the Atlantic seems to hold its breath, and we held ours. The sub groaned like an old tooth with every meter while the sonar scribbled shapes that didn't belong to geology. Arches, columns, a street sinking like a scar into the seafloor. Our forward lights cut through the silt haze and revealed the first marks, basalt carved into perfect curves, and long parallel scratches at a height no diver could reach without becoming an offering. 20 meters more and we touched the entrance, someone whispered, as if the water could hear. The dome appeared on sonar like a heart drawn inside out, and the current changed its mood. First, silence. Then a low rasp, not stone, flesh, enormous, moving where light refused to go. The hull shivered, the radio cracked, and the ocean seemed to choose one verb: surround. We saw the outline before the teeth, a vast flank scarred with lines like inscriptions, shards of basaltic column embedded in the gum like blasphemous jewelry. The megalodon studied us in slow circles, slicing the dark with the patience of a thing that knows time eats first down here. Each pass dimmed another instrument, each tailbeat rewrote the currents. And when the mouth of Atlantis's arch opened, not like a door, but like a stone jaw, we understood. The Guardian wasn't hunting bodies. It was charging admission in fear. Before I take you inside, do one thing for me. Drop a comment with the country you're watching from: Brazil, Portugal, the US, Japan. I read them all. And if you like expeditions that feel real and terrifying, subscribe and turn on notifications. Down here, the sea doesn't hand out second chances. And what we saw next won't fit inside science. Only inside a confession. Breathe. Slowly. And come. We dropped past 3,000 meters, and the ocean stopped behaving like water. It became weight. It became a set of hands that knew the shape of our hull and pressed there, and only there. Patient, curious, unblinking. The sub's ballast valves clicked like teeth. Our interior lights hummed with that thin hospital sound that suggests competence until it doesn't. Range to target arch, 50 meters, Lyra said, voice steady because she was fed facts through a vein. Return amplitude suggests a void beyond the stone, not a cave, something with curved symmetry. Like a dome that forgot its top, Saldanha added, watching the sonar bloom a pale inverted iris. Or a throat. Don't do that, I told him. Don't give the world a mouth when we still need to go inside it. Maya checked my pulse with 2 fingers on the wrist I wasn't using. 86, she said. You're lying to your body. It knows you're scared. Log it, I said, fear acknowledged. We all smiled, and the smile felt like making a child wear a helmet in a war. The arch rose from the silt. Basalt columns fused into a curve so precise the mathematician in me wanted to applaud. No coral forests, no drifts of clinging life, just stone polished by a current that forgot to leave barnacles. In our lights, the surface showed machining, or something older than machining. Concentric gouges that said tool without admitting what hand had held it. The scratches Lyra flagged were wrong. Long, parallel, high. I didn't want them to be tooth height. I failed. Narita ready, Ramos said, fingers on the ROV controls. The little umbilical robot purred like a cat we'd brought to bully leviathans. Lights 1 and 2 at 60%. Camera A warm. Launch, I said. Narita slipped from its cradle and swam a tight half-moon around our bow. Silt lifted. The arch's shadow spread like a yawn. The current backed itself into a corner. And then the low rasp we'd heard on the way down returned. Lower, closer, tuned to the stupid metronome of our hearts. Do you hear that? Lyra whispered, as if sound could be offended. The hydrophone trace trembled on her scope with a frequency that didn't belong to geology. It's not echo. It's reply. The first pass came like an eclipse that had lost patience with sky. A flank, just that, filled the right-hand viewport, gray that had learned black, scar ridges that looked like somebody had written on muscle with a dull chisel, the gleam of old skin over power. Our lights laid 2 brief bands across it and were shrugged off. I didn't see an eye. I didn't need to. The water saw for us. Size? I heard myself ask, because numbers sometimes let a man pretend he lives in a rational world. At least 18 meters, Saldana said, and he wasn't proud to know it. Maybe more. Proportions are wrong for a white. Everything says carcaracles if the textbooks had refused to end. The megalodon completed its circle with a tiny insult of a tailbeat, enough to make the sub roll a degree and our stomachs roll 5. No charge, no impact, a test. The hydrophones sang back a short, clicking ladder of sound that wasn't ours. The arch answered with a long, low, "Oh, that might have been pressure laid across stone." "It's hurting," Maya said, voice soft like a nurse telling you a truth she wishes she didn't have. "Or guarding. Or guiding," Saldana said. "If it wanted us gone, we'd be scrap. It's riding a perimeter with its body." "Keep Nerida inside the ark," I told Ramos. "If we lose her, we go home." We pushed forward. The sub's lights threw amber cones that hit suspended silt and came back looking tired. Beyond the arch, the water had a texture, like breath on glass. Lyra's scope showed a stutter in the return from the void beyond, as if something in there kept being almost there, and then not. The faintest pressure differential prickled my gums. My headset hissed. 4 meters, Lyra said. 3. The void returns like a sphere cut by a plane. I'm getting cardiac coupling again. If we hold breath, the low band pauses. Everyone breathe on my count, Maya said. In, 4, hold, 2, out, 6. We did it. The ocean waited. We exhaled. The ocean answered, one long rasp, patient as a night guard. Okay, I said, because someone had to be the person who lies to physics. We're at the door. We take our quick pictures. We go. Already shooting, Clara, no, Lyra, not Clara, different life, different tomb, said, and her hands didn't shake because she'd decided trembling was a luxury. Ramos swung Nereda through the arch, keeping the tether high so it wouldn't saw against old stone. Inside the void that wasn't, the ROV's lights found columns fallen inward, not outward, as if the curve had once inhaled and then forgot how to exhale. Between the blocks lay things that wanted to be artifacts when I told the story later. Beads of metal fused to glass, a joint that had fused without mortar, an angle so honest it made me suspicious. Keep her shallow, I said. Do not. The megalodon passed again, closer, the shadow of its lower jaw raking our lights like fingers. We all ducked because some reflexes are older than language. Teeth, rows of them. Not the cartoon triangles the world stencils onto fear. Real teeth, layered, chipped, pitted with the slow biography of a thing that had owned centuries and didn't care. And lodged along the gum line, like ornaments nobody dared remove. Shards of something that used to be columns. The predator had bled for this perimeter once. It would again. Hull integrity nominal, Ramos said too fast. But the accelerometers spiked when it spoke. It doesn't speak, Lyra said, equally fast, as if she could staple the world back into a taxonomy. The ocean threaded our headsets with a click trill nothing human throats could do. Nerida's tether twitched. The ROV's camera swiveled because Ramos swore, not because he signaled it. Something inside the arch moved the water without moving itself. Back her out, I said. Now, Ramos. Copy, he said, and the little machine backed like a dog that loves a hand that might not be a hand. The megalodon put itself between Nerida and us, not ramming, placing. Its trunk flexed, the beautiful, monstrous calculation of muscle unlearning and relearning water. Then it turned one eye, the first we'd seen, across our nose cone and held us in a prehistoric look that did not include hatred. I do not know what it included. Curiosity, ownership, the particular attention of something that makes a habit of surviving worlds. Enrique, Maya said softly. Say the thing you'll wish you'd said after. We abort with the data we have, I said, throat stiff. We mark the door. We leave a beacon. We come back with 2 subs and a better idea. That is the clever version of staying alive. The radio answered with static. I tapped the console like a priest taps a closed coffin. Topside, Orfeo, I said. Marking coordinates now. Expect telemetry drop. Telemetry already dropped, Topside said, voice half swallowed by the hiss. We lost your auxiliary channels at 20 minutes ago. Main channel snappy but fading. Suggests surface. Roger, I lied, because lying buys other people time. We reversed. The arch slid out of our windows like a mouth giving back a joke. The megalodon made one last circle and let our lights stripe its scars. It did not follow. It did not leave. It stayed, and that was worse. Guardians who pursue can be outrun. Guardians who wait belong to the architecture. At 2,000 meters, the radio found more air to carry its business on. At 1,000, the hull's song pitched up into something approaching relief. At 500, the sea remembered how to be sea again. We broke the surface into a day that had chosen a different world than the one we had visited. The tender's deckhands were laughing at something he'd said. A gull scolded us for stealing a patch of light. The horizon shrugged. On deck, nobody spoke while we winched Orfeo into its cradle. The sub's wet metals ticked. My knees discovered that they were knees again and tried to fold. Maya shoved water into my hands and told me where my mouth was. Debrief in 20, I told them, because routines are life jackets. Maya, check everyone. Ramos, pull ROV footage and copy 3 ways. Lyra, I want that coupling pattern isolated. Saldanha. Yes, he said, smiling without humor. I'll write the part that makes the university angry. We met in the galley because it was the warmest room, and the coffee put a fake childhood in the air. We put ROV frames up on a cheap monitor, the arch, the fallen columns, the little glass metal beadlets that refused to be nonsense. Then the frames where the light fell on flank and tooth and those obscene, implausible gumline stones. Explain those, Ramos said, jabbing a finger at the screen like he could depressurize it. Explain why it's wearing the ruins. Not wearing, Saldanha said. It has been through them often enough to be changed by them. It's a key that only fits because it is scarred that way. We are not going to say that in any official capacity, I told him. We will say the animal uses the structure as a territorial device. We will not say the structure uses the animal. Lyra had her laptop open to the hydrophone trace. She played back a chunk where I could hear our own cowardice. Breath in, breath held, breath let out, and the ocean's answer chasing it like a big dog chasing a small shadow. It listened, she said. It matched. It wasn't random. And when we all stopped breathing, the low band stopped. I don't like that. You're allowed not to like it, Maya said. That doesn't make it not happening. I set my palms on the table, left sweat there. We are not going back tonight, I said. We sleep. We send a coded summary to the Institute and not the video. At dawn, a thud against the hull, light enough to be imagination. We all went silent and counted how much imagination weighs. Another thud. Not hard. Polite. A knock from a neighbor borrowing salt. We ran to Orfeo's cradle as if the sub were a child crying. The tender heaved, and the sea made its old arguments against hull and ladder. I leaned over the rail and saw nothing but our own wake stitched into the gray. Probably a crate, Ramos said, or one of the fenders. Sure, Maya said, and did not believe herself. At Oro 240, the wind picked up. At 0315, our backup generator stuttered and then remembered its job. At 0320, the hydrophone in the cradle, which we hadn't meant to leave on, picked up a low, slow rasp rolling up from under the hull, the kind of sound teeth make when they have learned patience. Everybody stopped pretending to be tired. It's here, Lyra said. It followed. No, Saldanha said. It stayed where it lives. We followed it back because our heads are still down there. I stood very still and remembered the eye. Not shark black, not mammal wet. Ancient still. The look a glacier might give you if it had a day to spare. Okay, I said, because someone had to make a decision before the night did it for us. We de-energize every external on Orpheus so we're not broadcasting like idiots. We drop a passive beacon on a timer half a mile off and pretend to steam that way. We actually steam the other. If it likes our noise, it can go love that instead. Enrique, Maya said softly, what if it isn't following the noise? Then we stop being interesting, I said. We shut up and we get small. She smiled sadly. We didn't come here to be small. No, I said, but we came here to live. At 4:17, another 4:17, a bookend we didn't deserve. The ocean stopped knocking. The hydrophone went back to lonely. The generator ran like it had made a private deal with God. We pretended to sleep without doing it. The morning didn't feel like morning. It felt like the pause between breaths when you realize the next one might cost you more than you can afford. I drafted the Institute message and made it boring on purpose. I attached numbers that smelled like science and left off the ones that smelled like confession. I hit send and felt like a liar. On the bridge, the sea offered us the same horizon it offers everybody who doesn't know where to look. The arch lived under it with its possible dome and its definite logic. The megalodon drew its circles we couldn't see. We had to decide which kind of cowards to be. Maya poured coffee and didn't drink it. Say it, she told me, out loud. We go back, I said, hating the part of me that smiled. Not in, not through. We set a marker just inside the arch. We put Narita on a leash so short she can't be stupid. We log the pressure differential at the threshold. Then we leave. Then we truly leave. And if it shepherds us again? Lyra asked. Then we don't act like sheep, I said. Then we act like guests, Saldanha corrected. Guests who pay their way with respect. Guests bring presents, Ramos muttered. What does a shark want for a present? I looked at the arch in my mind, the curve too perfect, the void too patient, and at the way that eye had measured our hull. Not meat, I said. Attention. We kidded up. We said the wrong prayers. We lowered Orpheus as the day pretended to be ordinary, and the ocean, generous as a judge, opened its mouth and let us in again. At 09:10 we lowered Orpheus again. Daylight on the surface meant nothing here. A kilometer down, the world reset to its private midnight. We had stripped the sub of every non-essential emitter until it felt like a monk in a machine, quiet, austere, breathing only what it had to. Hydros, passive only, Lyra said. No active pings unless I call them. ROV leash. 10 meters, Ramos added, grim. Short enough to shame me if I get clever. Maya clicked through our vitals. We're not sprinting, she said. Slow breaths. Count them. Don't let the water steal the rhythm. Saldanha had the small buoy marker in his lap, an old-fashioned thing by design, a cylinder with a weighted line and a chemical strobe that could outlast a sulk. We set it just inside the arch, he said. We prove the door is a door. We descended into the same hush, the same pressure hand that remembered where we were soft. At 2,800 meters, the hydrophones found the low rasp again, patient as tide. At 3D100, the current stopped pretending to be random and folded toward the coordinates we already knew. Range to arch, 70, Lyra murmured. Her scope glowed like a keyhole. Return on the void is unchanged. If it's a trap, it's polite. The megalodon arrived like weather, first as a change in color, then as an opinion the water had about us. When it finally wrote itself across our starboard lights, it looked less like an animal than like a decision. Flank, scars, the engraved geometry of old violence. Jaw, teeth, that obscene jewelry of basalt in the gum. It paced us at a dignified distance and then drifted forward, taking the inner curve of our approach the way a shepherd leans ahead of a flock. It's not hunting, Maya whispered. It's arranging. Let it arrange, I said, and kept my hands light on the thrusters. The arch took shape ahead, the curve, the shadow, the suggestion of a sphere sliced open. Nereida's short umbilical twitched against the roof of her bay like a dog smelling the door it has been told not to run through. "Hold at 15, Lyra said. "We'll walk the last meters." We did. One thruster tick, and another. A surgeon's crawl. When our nose cone crossed the shadow line under the arch, the cabin temperature seemed to drop, although the gauge didn't agree. Sound changed too. The thin fan whir and pump chatter of our own life dulled, and the low rasp took up residence as if we'd rented it a room. "Marker," I said softly. Saldana leaned into the viewport with the reverence of someone preparing to place a stone on a grave. Ramos cracked the floodgate, and the little cylinder slid out into the dim, its strobe dark for now, its tether unreeling in a measured, stubborn fall. It struck a block inside the arch, bounced once and settled, the line drawing a straight sentence from us to the threshold. "Mark set," Ramos said. "Depth logged. Tether length 9 meters. "Copy," I said. "Nereida out. Keep her belly to the floor." The ROV eased into the void like a hand testing bathwater. 10 meters of leash ran out and went taut with a faint, useful honesty. Its lights traced the same fallen columns we'd seen, the same glass metal beads, the same impossible neatness of a collapse that looked like an inhale. "Hydros?" I asked. "Coupling again," Lyra said. "Same band. Same attention. Henrique. The low is ahead now, inside, not with the shark." "Of course it is," Saldana soothed. "If the door listens, why shouldn't the room?" The megalodon slid across our nose from right to left, turning enough to show an eye again. It was calm in a way that insulted nerves. It passed within 5 meters of the buoy marker, did not touch it, and moved on, tail making small amendments to the local current. The marker's tether quivered and then stilled. "Let's get the numbers," I said. "Pressure gradient at the threshold. Lyra." She swallowed. 2 millibars lower inside the arch than out. That's nonsense at this scale unless the cavity vents or breathes. "Breathes," Maya repeated, as if tasting a foreign word. "Don't call it that." "Call it what keeps your brain," I said. "Ramos, sweep the lower third. If the floor wants to rise, I want to see it before my stomach does." Nereida went left, then right, languid, a moth pretending to be a geologist. The leash whispered against the stone, too short to snag, long enough to remind us we could be stupid by accident. I inched the sub 1/2 meter deeper. The arch's curve grazed our viewport like a lip. That was when the current inverted. We felt it as hands on our hull, light, then firm, then insistent, nudging our nose downward, pressing our tail sideways, a suggestion becoming a plan. The buoy tether snapped once like a plucked string. Lyra's scope hiccuped and redrew the void with a narrower throat. "Back, Henrique," Maya said. "Now." I feathered thrusters reverse. The sub resisted like a mule persuaded to love a cliff. Our nose lifted a degree. Our speed stayed 0. The megalodon held station near the right jam of the arch, jaw slightly open, gills slow. The effect of its tail was surgical, a cross-current shaped to our stubborn shape. "It's herding us to the center line," Lyra said, awe and anger braided. "Not today," I told it, which is a foolish sentence to say to water. "Ramos, ROV back, slow. If the leash sings, stop." He did. The ROV came. The leash sang once. He stopped. The leash fell silent. I could feel the arch listening to our patience. "Count," Maya said in our ears. "In 4. Hold 2. Out 6. We obeyed. The low band on the hydrophones paused with us, and then completed its note when we exhaled, as if embarrassed to be caught mimicking. The pressure differential eased by a hair. The sub slid back a handspan. "Again," I said. "In. Hold. Out." The sub eased another handspan. The buoy tether relaxed. The megalodon performed a lazy half-circle and settled opposite, so we were between its eye and the door. "Henrique," Saldana murmured, not looking away from the viewport. "I have a hypothesis I hate." "Join the club." The arch is not a door to something, he said. It is a door with something. The shark is its hinge. The water is its latch. Fear is the key. So we don't give it the key, Maya said. We breathe like liars. We are liars, I said. Back, Ramos. Keep the ROV kissing the floor. Lyra, give me a 5-second ping. Gentle. She hesitated, then thumbed the transmit. A brief, careful tonk rolled out, touched the arch, and came back with an answer that fluttered like a heartbeat on her screen. There's space beyond the first chamber, she breathed. A long curve, almost a loop, and then nothing. The echo dies like sound in velvet. Good, I said. We'll be alive long enough to hate not knowing. Nerida's tether brushed a notch in the lip of the floor and caught. A light snag, the kind patience cures. Stop, Ramos said immediately. No tug. The current, as if exasperated with our learning curve, pressed again. Soft hands, then firm. The ROV's body yawed an inch. The snag held. The leash straightened like a thought. I pictured the line slicing against old stone, strand by strand, until the relief of a break delivered a small machine into a big secret. Forward a whisper, I said. One pulse. Ramos ticked the thruster. The ROV slithered left, the loop of tether lifted out of the notch with a smile we didn't deserve. Free, he whispered. Back, 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 Maya said, and by then no one wanted to argue with her. We reversed. The arch released us with the reluctance of a host declining a guest's compliments. The megalodon tracked our retreat a meter at a time, not closing, not opening, drawing its circle in the water as if reapplying a sigil. At the shadow line, the low band in the hydrophones lengthened into a note I will hear in the quiet parts of my life. Not a threat, not a call, a reminder of perimeter, of place, of patience older than ships. The buoy marker bumped the arch once, twice, then lay still, its line taut, its chemistry asleep until night. Hold, I said. Hold. Now left 5 degrees. We slid clear. The pressure on the hull redistributed into the honest, stupid weight of ocean. The rasp diminished as if the room behind the arch had closed its throat. We're out, Lyra said, and because she is a scientist, she sounded both disappointed and relieved. The megalodon kept pace to 60 meters, and then stopped. Its great body hung in the water, nose angled down, tail barely making amendments. The eye, hell's own coin, rested on us with that uninflected attention that refuses to mean anything human. Thank you, Saldana said into his mic, because good manners are a superstition worth having. We ascended in increments, pausing to listen at layers of water like eavesdroppers at doors. The rasp faded higher up and took with it a pressure I had not known was on the back of my teeth. When the surface grabbed our hull with its bright, rough hands, the crew on deck cheered, too loud, too human, and then pretended they hadn't. Winched aboard, Orfeo dripped and ticked and sulked. On the monitor, Nerida's last frames replayed in their small, stubborn truth. Curve, columns, beadlets, the notch that had wanted to inherit a leash. Lyra overlaid the ping return, the indication of a second cavity, the curve inside the curve, the velvet beyond. What do we call it? Ramos asked. Besides ridiculous. The vestibule, Saldana said. The mouth before the mouth. Maya set 3 bottles of water in a row and didn't lecture us about drinking them. You want my medical opinion? She said. It took from us less when we breathed together. It gave a little when we were quiet. If we go again, we go with our hearts boring and our egos dead. Copy, I said. We'll write that into the checklist under Bring Manners. We sent a new packet to the Institute, sterile numbers, briefly devout. We left out the feeling of the arch's shadow flirting with our lights. We left out the dignity of the shark. We left out the way the water learned our breath. Science can take only so much confession at a time. At dusk, we powered the buoy's strobe remotely. On a screen, deep under the violet surface, a pinprick woke and kept its promise. 1 blink every 5 seconds, a lighthouse for things that don't have eyes. The hydrophone, uninvited but attentive, picked up a short series of clicks, then silence. The megalodon's patrol line intersected the buoy once and deviated around it, bored as if to say, "I know where your toys are." The night came with fog, the thin, sourceless kind that makes deck lights into halos. We took watches we pretended were about the generator and the weather. At 01:12, during my turn, the hydrophone recorded a single, low, syllable-long drag riding up the water column from the buoy's depth. It was not threatening. It was not friendly. It was the ocean spelling the letter O. I did not wake the others. I wrote the time in the log and the shape of the sound and the curse that accompanied it. I stood at the rail and watched a piece of world that can afford to wait longer than I can. At 0540, sky and sea remembered how to be different colors. We brewed coffee mean enough to make saints swear. Lyra ran the coupling model again and tapped the screen with a fingernail that trembled. "It answers the cadence of our breath," she said. "But there's a second cadence, slower. Not the shark, deeper." "The room," Saldana said, "or what's beyond it." "Either way," Maya said, "it's not hungry. It's patient. That's worse." I looked at the buoy marker blinking to itself in the charted dark. I looked at my crew, my family for the length of this foolishness. I looked at the horizon trying to pretend it hadn't swallowed a door. "Gear up," I said. "We'll make one more pass, not inside. We'll map the edge properly. Then we leave a week, a month. We return with a second sub and a plan an old thing can't outwait." "No heroics," Maya said. "Not even small ones," I said. "We go say goodbye like decent guests." We lowered Orfeo into a morning that had decided to let us. The megalodon would be there. The door would be there. The room would listen. We would count and breathe and pretend that patience was ours to borrow. We aimed the nose at the pinprick blinking in the endless blue. And the ocean, teacher, judge, archivist, opened its syllabus to the next page. At 0720, we slid Orfeo back under, not to conquer anything, not to prove anything, but to keep a promise to ourselves. Map the edge, bow to the door, leave like guests. The sub's interior felt different now, quieter not from switches we'd flipped off, but from decisions we'd made. We were smaller on purpose. "Hydro's passive," Lyra said. "ROV on a 5-meter leash only. No experiments." "Vital steady," Maya added. "Count them. Do not let the room count for you." Ramos patted Nerida's housing as if it could absorb manners by osmosis. Saldana sat with the buoy uplink open and a pencil behind one ear, because some rituals work even when they don't. At 2,900 meters, the low rasp came in like a familiar smell. At 3,200, the current turned from weather into intent. At 3,450, the arch found us on its own. Curve, shadow, the hint of a sphere sliced and waiting. The buoy's strobe pulsed from the floor in perfect obedience to its chemistry. A patient blink, 5 seconds of dark, another blink, a tiny lighthouse for the blind. "Range to threshold, 30, Lyra murmured. "Differential 2 millibars inside. No change since yesterday." "Guardian?" I asked. "Port," Ramos said. "Holding station." He drew the line already. The megalodon swam like a geometry proof written in muscle. 2 slow arcs to sketch the boundary, a third to show us where to put our fear. It took up residence near the left jam this time, jaw parted just enough for dignity, gills fanning once, twice. "Edge pass only," I said. "Nose on the shadow, not through." We crept to the lip, our light slipping over the arch's skin as if embarrassed. Nerida went out on her short leash and nosed the floor, camera down, giving us the only information you can keep. Texture, angle, the exact degree a stone wants to pretend to rise. "Hydros," Lyra said, voice smaller. "The second cadence is louder, not the shark, the room beyond the room." "What does it say?" Maya asked, and somehow made it not a joke. "It counts," Lyra said. "Not numbers. Beats, slow, constant. If we hold breath, it holds. If we sigh, it waits." We drew our first ring, Depth, distance, angle of incidence for the radarless, lightless map only patient people can draw. The buoy blinked. The rasp hummed. The door listened as if it were born to the job. And then the ocean noticed the lie we were telling, the one where we pretended mapping wasn't wanting. It started at the floor, the faint suggestion of a rise, the chest breath of stone. Nerida's leash lifted a centimeter and laid down again, like a pulse you feel in your wrist when you don't want to. Ramos corrected with the smallest tap a human hand can make. The leash grazed the notch we hated, slid past it, behaved. "Keep the sub neutral," Maya said quietly. "No pushing against anything that can learn, we'll push." We made the second ring. The sonar stayed asleep because we wanted to leave with our debt smaller, not larger. My palms sweated into the foam around the joysticks. The arch filled the windows to an intimacy that belonged in a chapel. The buoy blinked. The rasp didn't change. And yet, change has a frequency your skin detects before your mind names it. "Current shift," Ramos said. "Where?" I asked. "Everywhere," he said. And he was right. The pressure stopped nudging and started holding, a delicate, distributed insistence on our hull and our decisions. It didn't shove us in. It refused to let us pretend we weren't already a little inside. "Back half a meter," I said. We didn't move. "Again," I said, lighter on the thrusters, as if gentleness could trick physics. The megalodon slid from the jam and took a new position dead ahead, 3 meters off our nose, big enough to be all we could see, deliberate as a gate. It did not threaten, it was a sign. "Stop," Maya whispered, though I already had. "Don't force the ocean's handwriting." We did the thing that had worked before. "In 4, she said, gentle. "Hold 2, out 6. We breathed like conspirators, and the door obliged by loosening the soft hands on our tail. The sub moved back a handspan. The buoy's tether eased, then stilled. "Again," I said. We repeated the catechism. The rasp behind the arch paused with us, wrote its O, and resumed. The sub slipped back another handspan. The megalodon drifted down, not out of the way, just slightly less in it, rotating so the old scar inscriptions on its gum caught our beam and flashed like indifferent runes. "Last point and we're done," I said. "We log the 3rd ring and we go. We will have kept our promise." Ramos inched Nereda along the lip, leash tight enough to make everybody honest. Lyra scratched numbers into a notebook, like the world might respect ink. Saldanha raised the buoy uplink to his ear, the way a man listens to a seashell and pretends he hears the sea. It should have been boring. It should have been the kind of anticlimax that saves lives. Instead, the buoy blinked. Fast. Once. Twice. 3 times inside 2 seconds. "It's not on that program," Ramos said, suddenly very awake. "It can't do that." "It's not," Saldanha said, face gone thoughtful in a way I didn't like. "Something is cross-lighting the chemistry, a short burst of biolum." He didn't finish because the light came again. Not from the buoy, not from Nereda, not from us. A pale, milky wash drifted out from the arch and slid along the floor like a tide running backwards. The silt rose to greet it, then settled. In the glow, we saw the imprint of something long and narrow, a negative shape pressed into dust and forgotten. A road, a conduit, a tongue. "It wants to show us a path," Saldanha breathed. "No," Maya said. "It wants to see if we follow. That's different." The megalodon held just above the glowing track, suspended as if hung on an invisible hook. Gills opened and closed like doors practicing their hinges. The predator's tail made a small, precise correction that placed its head on the track as if demonstrating fit. "Henrique," Lyra said, "if we nose forward 10 centimeters, the internal pressure band falls to 0. It's an invitation." "Or a calibration," Maya said. "Or something learning the size of a new key." We sat in that practiced silence of professionals who know that deciding is sometimes how you die. The line glowed. The buoy blinked its dumb 5 seconds like a child counting to keep fear busy. The rasp behind the arch wrote its slow syllables. The door waited. "No heroics," I said, as if saying it could make it true. "We complete the last point from here. If the numbers are dirty, they're dirty. We live with dirty." We started the measurement. We would have finished it. We almost did. But the ocean is an editor that prefers fewer words and shorter lives. A surge came from below, a cold hand rising into the hull, not strong, just everywhere. Orpheus lifted an inch. Our nose tipped down. Nereida's leash rose, brushed the notch, caught. Ramos froze. The ROV's small body yawed and came to a stop above the track of light. A hooked toy in a quiet room. "Don't pull," I said, already tasting yesterday. We reversed to free. I ticked the thrusters. The sub slid back the width of a thought. The leash stayed snagged. "Again," Maya said. "Breathe together." We breathed together. The room paused with us. The leash eased, then tightened again. The megalodon drifted a foot closer, the eye leveling with our glass, not menacing, not merciful. For an obscene instant, I thought I understood. The Guardian had been pushing us away from the track, not toward it, not herding, blocking. And the room had found a smaller appetite, our little camera, our little leash, a sample of our attention to weigh in its mouth. "I can cut," Ramos said, the words flat with grief and professionalism. "We lose Nereida. We go." I looked at the leash, a straight, bright line from us to the door's first step inside. I looked at the shark, hovering with that awful kindness. I looked at the glow and thought of tongues and keys and roads that can only count to one. "Do it," I said. Ramos didn't hesitate, and he didn't look at me, which is the best you can hope for when you ask a man to cut a friend. The snip was clean. The leash snapped back like a reprimand. Nereida hung for a moment on a little cushion of current, then drifted forward along the faint light as if glad to be chosen. The megalodon moved at last. Not a charge, not a kill, a single sweep of the head that placed its jaw beneath the ROV and lifted. The camera's feed lurched, floor, arch, gum-lined scars, and then went dark, not broken, just covered. For a heartbeat, I saw tooth enamel in obscene intimacy. The world reduced to calculus and ivory. Then black. "Signal?" I said. "Alive," Ramos whispered, astonished. "Telemetry present, video occluded. It's carrying her." The shark held the ROV against the palate of its mouth like a mother cat holds a kitten, not a chew, a hold. It backed away from the track of light, 1 meter, 2, and then, with a small turn that should not have been gentle and was, it set Nereida down outside the arch and let go. The camera blinked awake to show our own nose cone and the familiar boring mess of our lights in silt. The megalodon passed beneath the frame and resumed station at the jam. The track of pale glow inside the arch dimmed as if embarrassed. We didn't speak. I don't know how long we didn't speak. The room wrote one long, slow O, and then stopped writing. The buoy returned to its sacred 5 seconds. The world blinked and remembered itself. "Bring her home," I said, and Ramos did, hands careful as a surgeon pulling thread through skin. We reversed. The door let us reverse. The Guardian watched with that devotion predators can afford. We cleared the shadow line. The rasp inside the arch retreated and took the counting with it. "Log the 3rd ring as incomplete," Lyra said, voice shaking for the first time. "And log the intervention." "Use the word," Saldana said, softly, to himself more than to her. "He returned her." We rose through water that was just water. On deck, we did not cheer. We touched metal. We touched each other's shoulders. We looked away at ordinary things and tried to love them. Orpheus ticked in the cradle like a clock that had learned a different time. Nereida's housing came up with a smear on the lens that was not blood and not algae, just a rearrangement of the world that needed wiping away. In the galley, we wrote the ugliest report of our lives. Bald and bloodless and mean. Edge mapped to 2 rings. Pressure differential stable. Internal cavity presents acoustic coupling to respiratory cadence. Macro predator demonstrated non-aggressive boundary enforcement. ROV interference resolved without damage. Facts that didn't fit inside sentences waited in our throats like unshed breath. Topside came back with grants and cautions and a date for when we might bring a second sub, a second team, a second set of stupidities to test against the first. We nodded to the emails like they were weather. We packed. Before we left station, Maya insisted on one last ritual. We went to the stern at dawn, while the sea was the color of a bruise easing. She set the buoy uplink on the rail and let it play the last hour from the deep. The slow rasp, the quiet water, the moment the chemistry blinked too fast, the silence after. We breathed with it. 4 in, 2 hold, 6 out. Like patients behaving for a nurse. When the recording ended, we kept breathing for a while because it felt like a tax we could actually pay. "What do we call it?" Ramos asked again, but he didn't mean the vestibule. "The courtesy," Saldana said. "The warning," Lyra said. "The goodbye," Maya said. We steamed away with the buoy still blinking under 1,000 weights of world. The Guardian made his slow circles where we couldn't watch him be dignified. The door counted in the dark. The room beyond the room waited the way only a thing can wait when time is a hobby, not a hunger. In the weeks that followed, we returned to cities that don't breathe with you, and beds that do. We answered questions with numbers that lined up nicely like soldiers on parade. We did not talk about the glow or the lift or the way a prehistoric decision had decided on gentleness. Sometimes, in places that have no right to know about the deep, an elevator, a tunnel, a long hallway at night, the air thins politely and waits for me to be smart. I count, 4, 2, 6, and the thinness relents, as if the world has learned me and is practicing courtesy. In my office, the radiator makes a low rasp on winter mornings, and I say out loud to nobody, "Not today." The sound pauses, like an old friend allowing a lie. When they ask me what we found, I tell the truth they can hold. A perimeter. I don't tell them about the other truth, the one with teeth and restraint, and the tenderest lift I've ever seen. I don't tell them that Atlantis has a better memory than we do, and better manners. I don't tell them that the door is not a door to something, but a door with something, and that it counts breaths before it counts anything else. We will go back. Of course we will. We will take more lights and better lies. We will write our small rings around a mouth that has written bigger ones around us. We will hope, arrogantly and sweetly, for one more courtesy. And when the ocean spells its single letter up through a mile of pressure, when it writes its soft O at the base of the buoy, or in the brass of a radiator, or in the throat of a corridor, I will answer the way survivors do in the presence of patience. We were here. We are leaving. Thank you.